Right before she died of a drug overdose, I had no idea she was taking drugs.
It gets you addicted. I mean, I started out like any drug, just doing it once a week. Then it became twice a week. Then it became almost every night, smoking a little bit. Then it became waking up with it, doing it all day long.
I didn't get to see my daughter, but her dad did.
He was a heroin addict. He, had struggled with heroin for a long time, but he had been clean for a year.
I'm just thinking to myself, like, why? Why did you drive?
I looked to the left and I saw like this white truck, and I couldn't say nothing. I said, I go, oh Jesus, like that, and it hit us.
You will be convicted of a felony if you're caught selling this stuff.
And what you don't really realize that you're putting your life in danger and everybody else around you in danger, and it's just not worth it.
It was 8 minutes from the time the officer left, and that my daughter was killed.
Broke my back at T12, severed my spinal cord, had a punctured lung, a torn diaphragm, and several broken ribs, and that's what left me paralyzed at the waist, and he got a speeding ticket. That's it.
Well, hi, folks. Thank you for joining us. And here we are after the premiere of our second story in our domestic violence stories. And right out of the chute, I see Brianna saying, not a big fan of the DV series. What are you saying? Yeah, Cindy, I think it is a little bit hard to watch. But so I am quite curious about what Brianna's saying. It seems like an extremely important topic for us to address. Incidents of domestic violence happen. Incidents of domestic violence and stalking happen like 12 million times a year. And that seems like a pretty substantial thing that merits some instruction, some attention. So who else is with us? I see we have 18 people with us, and well, I appreciate you sharing, Brianna. We have that. We have a cannabis series that is new also, and it's receiving a lot of bizarre mixed reviews. So appreciate you being here, Cindy. What about some of the other people in the audience? Is there any new folks who might have some questions for us before we dive too deep into what all we're going to talk about this time? It's always hard to tell because there's a little bit of a delay between me asking a question and the messages that are in replies actually showing up here where I see them. So I talk like this to buy time while I'm waiting for something to pop up. Kimberly says, I've experienced DV when I was in my teens and 20s. I'm sorry to hear that, Kimberly. So what was your impression of the story? Welcome, Pat. Glad you're here. Pat says it's hard to understand how anyone could treat anyone that they, quote, love this way, in my opinion. Right. I can't get a grasp on it either. That it just seems very much alien to me to have that kind of capacity to be even capable of doing something like that toward someone you love. So we do have someone to join us. This time the storyteller, Julie, is here with us, and we're going to bring her up in a moment as soon as I can figure out how to make that happen. And Bernadine Hewitt, I suffered domestic abuse from my ex-husband for 3 years. When I was 21 to 24, I was lucky I survived. Well, thank you for sharing, Bernadine. And Pat says to Kimberly, agreed. Hard to understand. And what Kimberly said was hard to understand. Why do people do that to anyone? And okay, so let me bring Julie into the mix here, and here we are. Welcome, Julie. I believe I've done everything right, and we should be able to hear you when you speak. So
yes, I'm here.
Oh, that's a good sign. I'm seeing it happen. Golly, that's crazy. Bernadine says, I am 72 now, and I still suffer from PTSD. It never goes away. But Bernadine, gosh, clearly you're making it. Good job. Now, hello, Fly Girl. I haven't seen you in the group in a while. And Sally, thanks for joining us. Glad you made it over. Indigo says, sadly, my dad was physically abusive towards my mom and me for 17 years. And Risk has joined us again. Thank you for being here. Indigo is 55 now and still going through hell, the hell my dad created. Very, very sorry to hear that. You're among friends here, and you're totally welcome to share whatever's on your mind. So Julie, so the first question I try to ask people when we do these live events and we have a storyteller on is a little bit about what the experience of sharing the story was like for you. So what was it like?
Easy.
You made a face while you said that. You did this scrunched up face thing, and then
I
you
always
said
make
easy.
faces. That's why I don't like to look at myself, because my face shows everything. I got in trouble for that in the law enforcement academy. My body language and my face shows everything. No, it was easy. Once you said you were going to do this series, then I immediately jumped on it. I didn't even finish listening to your 5 minutes and emailed you. And then coincidentally, or I don't believe in coincidence, I think it's synchronicity. You just happened to be doing the fentanyl, and that was in Scottsdale, and that was my birthday on February 1st.
Wow. Very, very cool. And so there you were, among a bunch of fentanyl people, hanging out, waiting to share your story. And I felt like it. I felt like it went really good. I remember afterwards telling my wife, "Holy cow, that was a good story." Something along those lines, maybe a little more harsh. Let's see. Does anybody have questions for Julie while we're here? Pat says that Julie is louder than me. And that's no surprise. That's just no surprise at all. Same here, Brooke says. So clearly, we need to turn Julie down a little bit, but I'll handle that here, Julie. You keep talking the way you've been talking, and I will watch it more closely and see if we can get it closer. Cindy Bennett says, "Howdy, Miss Julie."
Hi, Cindy.
Yeah, there you go. That's what else can you say? Maybe that was a little bit better. So Sally has a question. Julie, what did you do to change your self-image? That's kind of implying that your self-image had less value when you were in the situation than how you got to that point where you could leave it, where you could get out of it.
Well, Kiba, long story short, after I had left my ex, and I never shed a tear over him. And I did fall for a man, and I didn't know it. It was Christmas 2015, and he was a 13 Emmy Award winning film producer. And he dumped me on Christmas via a text.
Wow.
Because he said that he couldn't handle, once I found out he had the 13 Emmy Awards, I put him on a pedestal and I kept repeating, why would you be with somebody like me?
Yeah, you shouldn't do
And
that.
but that's where I was. So I might as well just put it out there. That night, I'd been on social media. I was director marketing, had 1,000 people on my phone. Everyone in Sedona knew me. And I was watching everyone in the holidays. I'm an only child, didn't have any family. And I was feeding off the social media. And I almost ended my life that night.
Wow.
And I have this music thing. I know this sounds crazy. So it was actually my dog that saved me, because I looked at my dog and I said, I can't do this to Tanner. I had Tanner 13 years. He was a Beagle Jack Russell. And I went to bed and I woke up singing a song that I did not know. And it was the lyrics to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. One morning I woke up, I knew you were gone. A new day, a new way. Love is coming to us all.
Huh.
And I started journaling and writing. And you could say writing saved my life, because then I got to see a different version of me. I didn't really. A lot of it just goes back to my mom. Yeah, that, I don't say I'm not a big believer in domestic violence being learned behavior, because I raised another man's children and I never touched them. And my mother beat me. She'd be in prison right now. So, but it did chip away at my self-worth. I'm sure I carried it many, many, many years.
Well, that's a great point, that you dealt with it growing up, but you didn't pass it on. You didn't perpetuate it. You went the other direction, and it seems like that is as likely of an outcome as going the other way, passing it on, doing what you learn. It seems like it can go either way, just based on the perspective of the individual, the values that they embrace, and things like that. So Pat says I have to turn the volume up for me and down for you. Is it better now, folks? I hope the audio is better. I've adjusted Julie because she's such a loud person that I've had to make some tweaks. Fly Girl says, Julie, thank you for your service. And Kimberly says, thank you, Julie. Let's see. So, what are the questions for Julie? You guys, the audio's better, right, folks? Really? Anybody?
I could address Bree's comment
Breeze,
on
yeah.
not being a favorite subject of, or not being a fan of the domestic violence.
Okay.
And something happened yesterday, and some friends that had helped me moved when I moved to Prescott, and I don't like to attribute to their age, but I had sent them the link and told them, and I was excited and everything, and they just said to me, well, we don't watch anything like that. And to me, initially, it was like, well, then you don't care about me. Like, I
Right.
had to like take a step back, and but a lot of people are towards that Sedona area and everything. We have a sheriff that's not transparent, and people just tend to pull the covers over their head. And if it doesn't affect them, then they don't want to know about it.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's free. I'm just saying that's an example.
And I think, hello, Viola, welcome. And I think there's also a thing, there's something to be said for what brings someone to YouTube to look for stuff. And if they're just looking for entertainment, holy cow, I don't think there's much on our channel that would be suitable for just entertainment. There's better stuff out there. That the kind of stuff that we have is stories that matter. And so but Bernadine says I agree with that statement. Kimberly says I've had a hard time to trust anyone or someone working for the city. Does that mean like law enforcement, Kimberly, or you mean just like anyone working for the city? So Fly Girl is apologizing for being late to the live, and if you feel comfortable, Julie, which clearly you do, could you please tell me a little background? So this will be good. So go for it, Julie.
Dropped out of that kind of background, like dropped out of high
Yeah.
school at, okay.
You dropped out of high
I
school?
dropped out of high school at middle of my junior year. I got sent to live with, I used to cut school and go to work. I smoked a little pot, but high school was boring. And I was a lifeguard. So I used to cut school and go to work and teach swim lessons. And I was a lifeguard at a YMCA in the Bay Area. And then, quote, my mother couldn't control me. She's like a cult leader. She like literally, like, I was a latchkey kid. And my parents commuted to San Francisco. And so my mom finally said, well, you always wanted to live with your dad, so go live with your dad. And she said, come pick her up. And I was 17. And I moved to an area, it was like Visalia, Hanford area. And I wasn't accepted at school. I was an outsider, especially, in your junior, senior year. Actually, the only friend I had was an Afro-American student. And we just used to hang out the park all day because my dad didn't care. He wasn't capable. He wouldn't leave his mother. So I had my first federal job at 17. I was a lifeguard at a naval weapons station. And
A naval
So I went
weapons station has a pool? Or
Yeah, they had 3 pools: a chief petty officer pool, enlistment's pool, and officers pool in Lemoore, the Lemoore Naval Air Station in California.
wow.
And long story short, then my dad, he wouldn't leave his mother, and he made me live with these hillbillies, and she hit me and gave me a black eye, and I ended up in the back police car. So
Wait, you ended up in the back of a police car with a black eye.
yes, because I told her daughter was a slut, because she was.
Oh.
So I
Mhm.
had a guy that I dated that was a little bit older, and so he rescued me. So then we had our first apartment in South San Francisco, and I went to work for the state of California at like 18, and I kept on working, I think. And the way I got hooked on all of this was I I moved up fast. I was in HR. I was a supervisor responsible for 1,500 and 5 employees that were responsible for 1,500, and kind of went back and forth between. I lived in Marin for a year, San Francisco and Sacramento. So I got picked as a juror, and I was a juror for 9 months. And
Wow.
9 days of deliberations, a triple defendant murder for hire, murder for financial gain. And so that's kind of what got. And actually the lady, I'm the one that kind of like almost changed my mind after 9 days of deliberations. They played the domestic violence card on me, and I was actually living with a highway patrolman, and they still kept me. But I think I had enough domestic violence and life experience on the bad side for the defense that the district attorney wanted me as well. They questioned me for 45 minutes, and I never got out of chair number 4. So then I was hooked. It was better than television. They rolled out the carpet and put the Kleenex in front of me because they thought I was going to cry. We got to go through her house. And I know you're gonna kill me on this one. After the trial was over, I dated the bailiff. I have this uniform thing. I know you're gonna say. I know I had to give it to you.
Clearly, what did you call it during the interview? Badge bunning?
Yes.
Is that the
Yes.
term? Yeah,
Yes.
badge bunning. Yeah.
That's what cops
Dated
call women that like caps, today caps.
dated the bailiff. So does that mean you weren't paying attention during the trial? You were looking over at the bailiff going, wow, he doesn't look
No,
like the
I
guy on night
actually.
court at all.
It was crazy. That was afterwards because I had actually been living. Those were the 2 kids that were 2 and 4, and I had been living with a highway patrolman, and I never said a word to him. And that judge of that trial was the one that was supposed to marry us. Why they kept me, I have no idea. And so that's how
Wow.
I got hooked. So then when I went back to work, because I got my full salary because I was a state employee, went back to work, I went through the law enforcement academy. I wanted to be either part of a domestic violence team and or a school resource officer. And so they had a law enforcement program that was for what they called the extended academy. So I wasn't hired already, but so I had to pay the money through the college, and it was Tuesday, Thursday nights, Saturday and Sunday for 11 months. Why I commuted and worked full time, and I graduated 16th in my class. But 22 departments, I could not get a job. I flew through the physical, what they call the BPAD, which is behavioral. The police psychologist told me that I was too smart and I carried the boredom factor, and that I should go be an attorney. But later on a tribal reservation, they wanted to hire me as the token female because they didn't have any. The background investigator, I told him, I said, I can't pass a background. And I don't know why, because you sign away all your rights and you're not entitled to what they find out about you or anything. And he says, you passed. And I said, how is that? And he told me it was because in California, it doesn't matter if you're a domestic violence victim or perpetrator, which I was the victim, you're considered a liability carrying a gun within 7 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. I've never heard that. That is
That's what he told me.
interesting.
Yep. So I went to work for the appellate and Supreme Courts for the state of California. And now I used to sneak in the courtroom and watch the trials. And then just finally got tired of it. And when I turned 50, 12 years ago, I quit my job, packed up my 2 dogs, got a tattoo, and gave everything I had, whatever possessed me to buy a $3,000 leather Italian couch. I don't know. I gave everything I had to a lady that came to my garage sale that had a 5-year-old with cancer. And I said, just take it. It's just stuff. And your son fights for his life every day. And I bailed to Arizona.
And how you doing now?
Well, I'd rather live by myself. I share a house, but I like Prescott. I do like Prescott. And like I told you, I quit my part-time job. I took my Social Security early so that I could do this, start my own channel, and
Right.
follow my purpose. That 3 year, I've spent 3 years on a missing person case for the last 3 years. A girl that went missing out of Sedona, and I'm not done yet. I have extra surveillance coming because I tucked my way into a house that she would have had to drive past, and the police officers gave up 3 months after she went missing. And so moms, ironically, my mom and I are strange. We don't talk anything, but moms seem to be my specialty. That's why I love watching your fentanyl series, because I love the way the moms loved their children.
Wow. Yeah, it's powerful to watch when they start talking. There's when I do those interviews, there's a couple of right up front questions. One is your name. Everybody gets that one right. and then I ask a real open-ended question. I say, so why are you here? And usually what happens from that is there's a summary statement. I want to talk about losing my son to fentanyl poisoning. He was murdered by a friend, or whatever they're going to say. But then we get to the first really substantial question, and I ask them, so what was your loved one like growing up? And always, when the mother gets a chance to talk about their son or daughter that kind of way, it makes their face light up just right away. So what was your loved one like growing up? And there's this, you see, now that I've said it, you'll start looking for it every time you watch one of the fentanyl stories, and you'll see it. You don't hear me ask the question, but it starts off with the mother saying something like, "Oh, he was a handful when he was a kid," but their face is just sparkling, and they're so happy to get to
That
talk
wouldn't happen
about.
with my mom.
Yeah.
But when you go back to the fentanyl, is my mom had 3 brothers, and they were all closer in age to myself because my mom had me at 17, and she was the typical, state employee, worked for the governor, very smart. I got my smarts from her. My dad, they both actually worked for the California Highway Patrol in the when I was a kid. But um yeah, she wouldn't think of that. But her brothers, I was really close with Nicky Paul, and he died of a cocaine-induced heart attack when I was about 27. And it was like a Scarface funeral because he was, one of the biggest drug dealers in Sacramento, California. And then my other uncle Stevie, my mom's brother, again, that was a little bit real close in age to me. He was younger than Nicky Paul. I think he held the record of DUIs because I visited him all the time in jail. I mean, I'm talking like 20, 30. Like
Wow.
he lived at the Placerville jail, just about. And then my uncle Nick that passed away was a heroin addict. And I still have the letters in my box that he wrote me from jail, the pencils fading. And then Michael, my other my mother's final brother, parental abduction.
What?
His
What?
He abducted his children from a previous marriage, went to Texas and changed their names. My grandmother helped him. And they were there for 7 years. He couldn't afford the child support, whatever. So he decides that he's going to go back with the wife before that, take all 3 kids. And they went to Texas. So when I was 13, my grandmother was taking me inside like the Macy's lounge restroom with a roll of quarters, and she was calling him using a payphone. And she was an enabler, but about after 7 years after that, the kids walked into a Denny's, and Gregory and Aaron, those were their real names. Like one of them looked at the other one, and on the wall was like the missing photo and says, "Hey, that's you." And there were all these people waiting to eat in the lobby. So they came back, but the district attorney, whatever, said, "No, wait." And it was all about a political thing because Gray Davis was going to run for governor. And so when they came back and then the kids were brought back and everything, he flew them all to Disneyland. And, that was in the days of the milk cartons. And yeah.
Right, right.
So there you go. So I distanced myself from all of them, even including my grandmother. I knew I probably, if I stuck around all of them, especially since I didn't have to pay for it, I probably would have really gone down a bad road. So,
Wow. Huh. Okay. Sorry. I was getting messages. Now, Fly Girl asks if your bailiff friend was he an abuser too?
dumb as a brick, but a hot 6-pack. I mean, this guy had the discipline and the body. I mean, he had a 6-pack, but he wasn't the sharpest tool in the shed. And you have to think about, when you stand all day in court, and I don't know, I need somebody that's a little smarter that, yeah, it,
Yeah.
it, it didn't work out.
But he wasn't
No, not at all.
violent or anything.
Not at all. No, just no more cops. No more uniforms, no more military, no more cops.
Yeah, well, you say that. I'm still holding out a little skepticism there, Julie.
I don't date. I have a purpose, and like I said in the video, when you know what your purpose is, it's easy because you know what you have to do. I have a couple male friends. I have a few friends, very selective. They are true friends. A couple of the other underdogs that are on my channel are just as good as gold. But it's very I shouldn't say this. It's very seldom I see men that I'm attracted to.
Uh-huh.
But my ex, because he was former NYPD, he was never in a uniform. He just had that whole, he just sucked me in. I mean, he knew what he was doing.
Right. He had that cop persona. Is that
Not at all. He was
no?
just a charmer. He was actually kind of like, I used to beat him pretty bad in tennis, where I would just smack the ball so hard, and he would be like a kid that wouldn't, he just did all the right things. I'd never had flowers on Valentine's Day. I never had a ring. He just, and that woman, like I said, I was remembering all kinds of things after Gina's story that came back to me, how he cut my mouth with a butcher knife. And there were a bunch of things that happened after I left him, kind of synchronicity. And the guy that helped him move and helped us move into a place of our own. I saw him, I was waiting tables at a wine bar that my friends owned. And I saw this guy, Gary, that helped my ex move. And at first I wanted to run and go the opposite direction. But instead I turned around and I'm like, that's it. So I walked right up to Gary and I'm like, hey, I heard your buddy I think at that time he moved back in with so-and-so. And out of Gary's mouth says, that's the one thing I told him, is that he needed to come clean with her. So when I said in the video she was at my house, he was playing dual roles. He was living with her while I'm working and everything. But she was a financial advisor pretty well. And when he fled, she came into Caldwell Banker in Sedona, and somebody thought she was me. And he managed to bail out, living with her and everything, to bail out. And she didn't, like, all his things were gone in a day. And the night before, I had seen him, because it's at a roundabout, and I could see him at his desk because the lights were on. And this other sergeant that I love dearly was making traffic stops in the parking lot. So here's my ex sitting at the desk, and here's Sergeant from Sedona making with his red lights and everything. And I just knew my ex was like shaking in his boots.
Well, so you mentioned well, before we get into that, thank you for sharing. Viola says, thank you for sharing your story. Life is a journey, isn't it? No, I think all lives are a journey one way or another. And Kimberly says, thank you for sharing. And Fly Girl says, Julie, you are an amazing, confident young lady. More power to you, girl. And I'm just sure there's that girl, that kind of
you go girl.
Yeah, that I'm not so good at it, but you know what I'm talking about. That Fly Girl says, more power to you, girl. And girl is spelled GURL. So yeah. You confident young lady.
I'm not young though. I'm like 62 now. But I always tell people, this is one of the things, is I love love. It's just not been in my cards. Some people get a royal flush, some people get two deuces. And that goes for life in general and everything, is that I love love. If you find love, grab it, hang on to it, cherish it. And that goes for men. I have some friends, they're gay, and he's a film producer. and in Sedona, filmmaker, and his
It's
husband,
not.
and they actually are from Texas, and they're from Texas, and they've been together like 30 years, and they have a dog. And I said, "Well, what brought you to to Sedona?" And he says, "Well, two gay men in Texas adopting a newborn. We had to get like the hell out of Dodge." And so I love love. It's just not in my cards. Yeah.
My sister and brother-in-law live in Waxahachie, Texas, and their next door neighbors are a gay couple. Two guys. They've been together a long time, and their names are uh, uh, Willie and Richard are their names. Okay, it's funny to me. What's wrong with you people? Willie and Richard. What's the short version of Richard? And what does Willie mean? Oh God. Oh, okay, fine.
Oh, I would not even have thought of that or gone there.
Well, yeah, you just had to have been there. I think someone pointed it out to me when they were introduced. It wasn't really my doing, but I thought it was funny. So where you at now?
care.
You've got a lot going on now. You've got a lot going on that not just going on. You've got a lot of things that you're really attacking. You've got a lot of things that you're on, like Oprah on a baked ham, like a rat on a Cheeto.
The missing. The confidential informant. We're gonna go down that cult, satanic ritual, paranormal. Yeah, this interview with you. I'm so blessed because it's gonna open the door to some other things that people don't talk about. But a
Yeah.
lot of those are why people go missing. People don't think of organ. I've heard everything all the way to organ harvesting,
Mm-hmm.
but people don't talk about.
And so, okay, fine. Sorry, I'm getting revisions from people. Revisions, my God. So I'm just venting a little now, just a little bit, but so tell me more about that. So you have a channel that is it live now? Is it gonna be soon? What can we tell people about your channel and what you've got going on?
Well, I was gonna try to do it today, but I was all like wanted to make this go perfect and everything. And I've done a television interview, which totally edited. I've done a couple other interviews, but not alive like this. And you got to jump in and get your feet wet. But my channel it's on YouTube. It is sitting there. So it's at the @ sign, Just Us. So it's like justice, but it's not spelled that way. It's Just Us, US. And the number 4, underdogs. And you can subscribe. I have a team. So there's 3 of us, and then the 4th slot is kind of for guests, and in case someone else, I feel wants to be slide in there that fits with all of us. But and it's not just true crime, but we have some really like I said, the one confidential informant, pending legislation, and I was gonna say my boyfriend. I do have a movie star celebrity that He wears a uniform. Oh my gosh. That has agreed to weigh in on my confidential installment. I don't know if people know his name is Lenny DePaul. Manhunter Fugitive Task Force. Yes. So I think he's like Brad Pitt. So I so the show is gonna be my other two co-hosts, Heather and Freckles, which I met during this missing person investigation. So we're all different decades of ages. We have different backgrounds. Heather did 8 years in prison with Jodi Arias for selling drugs. She's been recovered for like 10 years. Her daughter, Freckles, I call her Freckles. She's going to kill me. Ashlyn, because she's probably watching. She's going to school for forensic psychology, and she's a Muay Thai kickboxer. And so I started to write when I was writing the verbiage the other night. It was like, ladies of the View, move over because the underdogs are in town. And then I got the thing popped up in my feed that says they're going to cancel the View, and I'm like, yes. So there's lots of stories, but I've always been an underdog. Things haven't always been easy. Just lots of different stories. And the one, like the confidential informant that lost her daughter, they recruited her. So I think that'll be a weekly. Bridget would be on weekly, kind of like, so you could follow her every week. And then, like I said, after the domestic violence, then I've got and the difference is too, we're not going to be just reading from police reports, sitting behind a desk. We have footage. So I'm going to take you where my missing girl's car was found. So we do have some beautiful Sedona footage. Unfortunately, it's not a great situation, but we're going to take people through my 3-year investigation. And hopefully the audience, because everybody thinks differently, will be able, I want that interaction. They might be able to help us solve what happened to her because she disappeared without a trace.
So here's a thing. There's certainly a substantial potential for that. I think that you hear a lot of times of cases that get resolved because of some surprise that comes out of nowhere, because of exposure in the media, or because of a wanted poster hanging up in a restaurant or whatever. And but so when a few minutes ago I talked to you guys about when I do the fentanyl interviews, and I asked the mother, so what was your loved one like growing up? And their face lights up. And that's what happens to Julie when you ask her about what she's got going on. Did you guys see that? That once she started talking about it, holy cow, she is just spark. Look at her now. She is, because she's on it like Oprah on a baked ham. She's
Oprah on a baked ham.
She's on it like rat on a Cheeto, like Biden on a flight of stairs, like whatever. And so
Biden on a flight of stairs, huh?
That's terrible. Well, I know. That's
I think obviously I found my purpose. I don't have any money. I took my Social Security, can barely make it. I mean, you know how that is. Like, when you travel and missing person cases and everything, you have expenses. You've got gas, and you've got food, and you've got ATVs, and I brought in a metal detection expert from Texas, and but I'm okay with the sacrifice right now, having to share a place to keep my expenses down. Till the dog cost me $500 last week.
Yeah, but that's the dog.
I know, it's like family. It's my family, but I'm willing to make the sacrifice. And there's no I in team. With my team is right now, one of them's got to have surgery. A couple months ago, one lost her mom. So it's like I've got the baton right now, but they always show up. And they think and they see things like, well, what about this? And we used a psychic. I'm going to have a psychic on there that actually helped me get to that gas station where she was last seen. And who was the cashier? That's my Freckles. So that's but we've got a lot of video too. So we're going to take people out to the Boynton Canyon and Jerome and some really beautiful places. And hopefully, the family's given up. There's a news story out there, but I haven't, because if we don't have a body, we don't. And we have so many missing cases here. That's why I'm so grateful that you agreed to work with me on a missing
we will
storytelling summit. Yep.
And so we have a question here, but everybody saw that, right? Her face just lights up when she starts talking about what she's got going on. How cool is that? What a sweet spot to be in life. We're in a similar spot with what we're doing. So Jane's Journey has a question, and the question is the missing person from Sedona a grocery store worker?
Yes, James. You can, the news stories
Jane.
out there, if you Google my name on, yes, if you Google my name, it'll pop up, my highly edited interview with Brianna Whitney on True Crime Arizona. Yes. Yolande Miller is her name.
Kimberly is asking, Julie, is this a hard subject to talk about? And I would venture to say no.
No, because it goes back to that mom thing. Because that's why I said in the interview, I had such a horrible, I'm sorry, I had a horrible mother. And then I started having like flashbacks on one of these missing cases, and I had no idea that I had parental abductions on both sides of my family. And I've had news reporter, investigative reporters just hammer me about, why are you so interested in this case? And what's your, Melissa Blasius from ABC 15, like I had an ulterior motive. And I maybe didn't, my original reason was I started my investigation 3 weeks after Yolanda went missing, because I felt that I was tired of hearing in Sedona, what missing girl? And they know it. Chief Stephanie knows it. I feel like Sedona PD swept the story under the carpet because missing people are not good for tourism. And when something is a potential suicide, it doesn't have to be reported through the mandatory law enforcement reporting code. And it's just easy to make it go away. And out there where she went missing, there's 3 other cold cases out there that go back to when John Walsh of America's Most Wanted was in Sedona. So we've got some good things.
Very cool. Very cool. So I think that you're
kind of let the cat out of the bag, kind of. I didn't mean to tell all this.
It'll be fine. I'm sure everybody's paying attention, but we're good. It's all friends here. Everybody, is there anybody else in the group who hasn't chimed in who would like to? Now, if you're watching us on your smart TV in your home, you can use your phone to watch as well, and you can chat on the phone. You can engage in the chat on your phone while you're still watching the live event on the big TV. So I always throw that out. It's kind of late in the broadcast for me to be bringing that up, but it happens. What are you going to do? Fire me? So here we are.
One more quick thing.
Yeah.
What I see is evident, not evidence, evident in your fentanyl stories is depending on the law enforcement agency, the type of response or lack of response or investigation or lack thereof.
Right.
And that's why I loved when you put good cops, bad cops, because it truly is, whether it's fentanyl or suicide or missing people, it truly is indicative of the agency. Like Flagstaff and Coconino, I love. They are so transparent and they just put it all out there. I get the scanner report every night. Our Sheriff Rhodes knows who I am. They're not transparent at all. And I don't think that's fair, because I think an informed community is a safer community. So not all cops are bad. I'm not saying the sheriff's bad. I'm just saying I'm not a fan.
No, they're
And
not.
look, you know,
They're not all bad.
but look at the ones that helped me. I had some great ones that,
Yeah.
you know,
There's good cops, there's bad cops. That sounds like a title. And so we've done a lot of work with law enforcement over the years, and totally agree with that. You know, the officers that we work with typically are officers that we're assigned to. And so police departments are going to assign the guy with a camera to good officers. So we have a series on our channel called American Peace Officer.
that was a great one.
Which highlight, there's like, I want to say there's like 7 right now. They're a little bit of a challenge to produce, because if the officer is still an officer, if he hasn't retired yet, he has to go through this command. It has to go up the chain of command to get the story approved before we can publish it. And that's a little bit of a nuisance. So, so far so good. There's a story called The Man on the Bridge, and that was with
I love that story.
that was with the Houston Police Department. The officer is Sergeant Don Egdorf. Don and I have been friends for 15 years or so, and I remember the day after it happened, he told me about it. But it was another 8 years before we got to make a story about it, and that was right after Don retired. So, but it's an awesome story.
And that's
Yeah.
one more point, because I'll forget. The thing I want to say about Gina's story, the one before me, is when people think, when she said how the woman that held her job and helped her, and they brought her food, but when someone needs help, it doesn't mean it's money. And people don't look at, a lot of people won't even look at a homeless person, or unsheltered is correct terminology nowadays. I love in Gina's story how people stepped up to help her. And that didn't mean writing her a check or renting her her own apartment or everything. But it just goes to show how much of a difference you can make in someone's life.
For sure. Having that, making that effort, much the same way you're making the effort with the projects that you've got going on involving the missing, you're helping others, and that is, and it's a human thing. It's not even a duty or a privilege or any of that. It's a human thing that needs to happen. So there's a couple of questions popping in. Kimberly is asking about kids being involved in domestic violence with other kids. Is that a thing in your experience? Have you heard about that?
Not so much. I know that I saw a comment. I think it was maybe in the feed with Gina. I think that goes back to training. Kind of the only thing that I could even remotely come to that is when I got graduated the law enforcement academy, I had a great law professor on search and seizure. And if I had my way about it, I would teach one, people about their civil rights, and two, juveniles about when a police officer can get in their purse, when they can talk to them. And I think that a parent owes it to their children and should take the responsibility before that 16-year-old takes the car and goes out on a date to check those license, those brake lights, to check the tires, whatever, so that it alleviates the light over the license plate, the chance of her getting or him getting stopped and even being put in that situation.
Right.
I know that's kind of off the cuff there, but that's as close as I could get to her question.
Yeah, it certainly isn't something you hear about as much, but it sounds like the type of thing that must happen some. I suspect that maybe Kimberly has an experience that has her thinking about that. Maybe not something that happened to her, but maybe something she witnessed. But we have been. Yes, Julie.
Oh no, I'm good.
You good? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we have been here a little bit over an hour, and it is about time to wrap it up for tonight. And so, I'm really grateful for Julie to have joined us after the premiere of her story, the long-awaited premiere, and we will be certainly doing more with Julie. We'll be back in Arizona sometime soon. Kimberly, the person who asked the question, says, I witnessed it last year. And so that inspired the question, I imagine. So anyway, so Julie, thank you very much for joining us. And I will be talking to you soon. And I'm going to spend a couple more minutes with our group here before we wrap things up for tonight. Brenda's already bailing. Brenda, you've been so quiet tonight. Usually you have a lot to say. Hope you're doing okay. Anyway, we're going to let Julie get out of here. And Julie, I will connect with you tomorrow. I'll shoot you a text or something, or you text me, whatever.
I won't blow up your phone.
Yeah, you say that now, but if you do, that's okay. That's really okay. But thank you for being here, Julie, and we will talk to you soon. Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you. So, folks, thanks for being here with us. And I wanted to just check with you guys about if there's any other kind of questions. Yuli, we'll go with Yuli. Okay, we'll go with Yuli. Thank you. I hope I can contribute to improve DV awareness and support someday. Well, that sounds awesome. We're here. We're not going anywhere, and so you can certainly reach out to us. Our network of contacts are growing, and so we're always happy to work with you guys and to figure out ways to do more to increase awareness and help save lives, improve the quality of lives, all that good stuff. Yuli, I feel like I feel like that's a new name. Like we haven't seen you in the group thing before. Is that right? I do really appreciate you guys having questions for Julie and for the way that you guys have been a part of this new series. It means a lot to me. It really helps us along. Brenda says, what you take for granted, someone else is praying for. Good night and God bless. That is Brenda's great sign-off message, and it is such a good message. I think that's fantastic. Usually, I was in the fentanyl premiere yesterday. Okay. All right. I forget. I'm old. I'm older than Julie. So domestic violence gives me nightmares from paramedics. Really appreciate your work, Glenn and Julie. Thank you, Yuli. I never get tired of hearing that. I feel very blessed, very fortunate to get to do this kind of work. It is, for me, it's living the dream very much. I get to just chase important stories. I get to chase stories that matter, right? Stories that matter. I get to chase stories that matter. We don't have any outside funding, no grants, no nothing. Just the revenue that comes from the advertising on YouTube. So we are not accountable to anybody other than the storyteller and the audience, you guys. So it's really a sweet spot. Anyway, it is time to wrap it up, but I always like to remind you guys that we're always available. You can reach out to us. You can call us, message us, text us, email, whatever. So here's our contact information. Email address is info@texas-pictures.com. And I read all of those emails. You can find us on Facebook. You can find me by my name, Glenn Muse. It's right there. Or you can also find us by finding the Texas Pictures page on Facebook. We're on TikTok, and on our website, texas-pictures.com, you can find more information about how to share your story, how to organize a storytelling summit. You'll find a link to our merchandise page where you find t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, and that kind of thing. And you can find out more about Texas Pictures. You can find out our evolution, where we came from. There's contact information, a mailing address, phone number, all that good stuff. So please feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks again for joining us, and we will see you guys very soon. Good night, folks.